connect and thrive. Our directory is packed with listings for Black-owned businesses, nonprofits, and community organizations, as well as helpful tips and articles on a variety of topics. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and click the bell to be notified when we do a new video. Good evening, everyone. This is Connie King with the Black America Resource Directory, and we thank you for joining us this evening for such an important topic, coping during the holidays. If you're like me and hundreds of other Americans, sometimes we have some challenges in dealing with the holidays. And with that being said, we want to have a discussion. We are so excited to have Shor Denny with Community Now with us this evening. And we're getting ready to bring Shor on, and I'll introduce you to Shor. We'll talk a little bit about who Shor is and what Shor does, and then we're going to move directly into our coping during the holidays. Shor, thank you so much. And I know we have a storm that's going on out here in California, finally needing some of that rain, okay? But Shor is the founder of Community Now. It's a nonprofit focused on supplying mental health and wellness support and programming for the community. In 2020, Shor was inducted into the Grand Canyon University Hall of Fame for the impact of her dynamic programming. Shor uses her master's in mental health and wellness to create, implement, and advocate for the prevention and mental wellness programming. I want to say thank you very much, Shor Denny, for being with us this evening. I know we had talked about a couple of things regarding the holidays. And I know that I had shared with you when my mom passed away, the last time she was at home was Thanksgiving. And then she passed away December 23rd. So for me, the holidays, especially Thanksgiving and Christmas, were very challenging times for me. And I know some of the conversation that we had talked about, we have a tendency to look towards therapists in order to help us navigate some of these depression or anxiety or emotions that we're going through, and failing just to kind of stop and realize some of these things we just may need to know how to cope with them. So what I'd like to do, Shor, is to turn it over to you now, because that's what we're going to be talking about. How are we coping, not just for the holidays, but just in our everyday lives? So thank you very much.
Thank you. Yeah, you said a few things. There's quite a few things there. Coping is something that we should just do, right, throughout our lives with daily stressors. But when you're talking about coping during the holiday and the feelings and emotions that come over us during that time, well, that's a whole nother bag that we have to put on top of what we already have to deal with, right? So we're already stressed, right? You know, you're already at your limit, you figure, and then the holidays are coming, right? And that's just adding extra pressure, as well as, you know, those expectations, which can bring either depression or anxiety. A lot of family have lost friends or family members that aren't going to be here for the holiday, like you said, and some might even have gone home during the holidays. And how do we cope with all of these things? I will tell you that they're all different, but they're all the same, right? There are some basics that we should always do, and then there are ways that we need to learn to cope with these stressors during the holiday. So I have a couple of things that I would say right off the bat. And the first one would be to talk about it. Talk it out. Talk with your family. Talk with your whoever is involved in that ritual that you call your holiday. the traditions that you have in place. Talk to those people, and you might find that they're just as stressed and freaked as you are, and maybe a change needs to happen, right? Maybe this year, if it's costs, maybe this year don't buy for adults, only buy for kids. Start looking at different ways to problem solve and fit things in. So I would say, number one would be talk about it and start search. You got to figure out where it is that you need the support before you
Right.
throw the support in there. So if it's in dealing with grief, as you were saying with families in the holidays, well, there are several ways that you can cope with that and what fits into your lifestyle. But one could be, again, after you're talking to everyone, help them understand that this is not a time, especially this year, that I really want to partake in this, right? And with that, you can use the money that you were going to spend on presents for everybody and go on a trip.
Right. Oh, perfect. Or do something. Do something for yourself. And it's okay sometimes for us to kind of be a little selfish with ourselves, because we do have a tendency to extend to others before we, take care of ourselves. So that's a great point.
Yeah, you're always looking at the expectations of others in the holidays. What gift can I get? Will they like it? It's all very focused on others and what their expectations are going to be, rather than what your expectations are or what you really can do. So another thing I would say is set boundaries on your time, on your money. So on your time would be, if you're in an environment where they're just doing parties and parties and parties and parties through the whole month, and that's too much for you, plan out how many you'll do. Say, I'm only going to do 4. So which 4 do you want me at, and stick with that boundary so that others will respect it. And that way you can respect yourself, and the time that you're not at that party, you can feel good about. Because sometimes, we're in environments and we're mad we're there,
Right, exactly.
I didn't want to come, and well, I got to get a present for Susan. And, so, think a little more, and it's such a selfish world we're in, but I would say in this instance, there are things that we need to do to support ourselves. And it's only because our world is so materialistic, right? And our youth are seeing things that they can get on TV, and there's this great expectation of getting for the holidays, not giving, getting. For the holiday. So again, those boundaries, how much I'm only going to have a budget of $200 for the holiday. Feel good about it. $200. I'm going to fit everything I need to in there. Look at who you're giving gifts to. It's not that everyone, and who are we getting gifts from, so that we're not putting this baggage on somebody else. Oh, you didn't get me a gift? Well, there could be quite a few reasons you didn't get a gift, other than I don't like you. It could be, I don't have the money.
Right. And then we do that swapping thing too. But going back to what you had said, I know, work in a corporate environment. And when we have these events during the holiday, the corporate events, the bosses and supervisors and managers want you to attend to represent. And it's like, half the people I don't know, I don't want to go. I want to go home and, enjoy my dinner with my family and my husband. So we do make those concessions, even in the workplace, because it shows that, you're a team player and you're part of, the group and the whole bit. 1 or 2, maybe it's fine. But like you said, for the whole entire month, it's party after party. And if you have a spouse or, a partner or a significant other, then you may be going with them to their functions as well. So now you even added on more. Another point you had mentioned that I wanted to kind of speak upon, you had talked about getting, what are we going to get? And I can say for sure, my sister almost had a fit when my son was about 6 years old. And I was like, no gifts, we went to a shelter, and we purchased gifts and gave, the gifts. My son was so excited. He came home, he was like, Mom, and I can give him my bike, and I can give him my this, and he was so excited, just to have that experience, because I didn't want him to always think that the holidays were about getting something. So those are some great points that I can relate to in my own personal life. So
Right.
that is great. So I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, you didn't. That's that oxytocin, right? That the oxytocin that goes through your body when you see something kind, you do something kind. It just brings good feelings and wellness. So, and that's what your son experienced, and it's such a great thing. And in this time, we see more youth looking at what they're getting and not being happy with it either, right? You this is what you got me.
Do you have a receipt?
I
Is there a receipt?
Hoverboard. Where's the hoverboard? So we got to, be careful about the expectations. Materialism is something really big during the whole year, but especially at the holidays. So I would say to families, stop it. And have some realistic expectations for the holiday. Put some limits, some cost limits down. Put some quantities down. There was a time when I bought my daughter so many presents for one Christmas that she didn't open them all in the same day. She couldn't get them all open, and literally she didn't play with them. She played with maybe 2 out of everything that I bought for her, and that was a lesson of, there can be too much, and there can be a lack of gratitude when too much is given. So some of us have to look at, we start getting upset with not feeling that people were grateful, or, we didn't get our oxytocin when we gave those gifts, right? They fell short. So us who are givers, we have to remember, number one, set your boundaries and be realistic in the gifts that you're giving, and be realistic in your expectation of what you're going to get in return. Right.
And one of the things that we did, our family did in 2020, when everything was closed down, nobody could travel, we did a ugly sweater holiday event Zoom. And we had maybe over 50, 55, 60, close to 60 family members, because we're all spread out. And sure, that was really one of the best Christmas, because we could all see each other. We all started talking about Uncle Bud and Uncle here and so on and so forth. So it was a connection, and we brought in family members that we had never even met before. So something like that may, I don't want to say be an alternative to in-person, because we need that, that in-person touchy-feely, something like that too. But if it's something that is causing you to have some anxieties because you can't fly to New York or wherever your family is, maybe the Zoom can be something that, we're already using it, can be a fun way that you can, deal with some of the holiday, events that we're talking about now.
Yeah, and that goes to the other side, right? Loneliness. Depression during the holidays, not having family even, or as you're saying, them not being close. So different environments that you can socialize in, like Zoom, where you can bring people from long distances to come and communicate, is definitely better than no communication at all. Gifts can be opened, they can be sent and wait until that date, and they can be opened together. People are just doing Zoom just to do Zoom, so but those holiday party Zoom events are really something to be excited about, especially if you have older family members that are not able to move around. That's when it really becomes special, because they can, without getting exhausted and, having to be all in it, they can and partake and see the family and enjoy.
And I was thinking about this when we were talking about looking at some of the topics that are out there in terms of alternatives. And I know one of the programs we had did how art heals, and that was the different form of therapeutic methods that's being used. But in terms of for the audience, when you and I had a conversation before, and we had talked about the coping, just on an ordinary day. There's a book called What Looks Like Crazy on an Ordinary Day, one of the best books that I've read, okay? But we were talking about, say for instance, I'm on my way to work. I have a flat tire. I know I have a board meeting, at 10 o'clock. I'm gonna miss the board meeting. Now I got all this anxiety. Am I gonna get, how's this gonna affect me? My car is late, the AAA is not here. The gods are not against me. If in fact I own an automobile, chances are I'm gonna have a flat tire. How do we cope with those kind of just ordinary, basic, everyday situations, and they don't turn into me having to call a therapist to help me navigate through this situation that I just encountered? We need the therapist. We're not, saying anything. We're just saying there's more ways than one, because there's not a one size fits all form of us receiving help or asking for help.
That's so in prevention, and I'm a preventionist, right? So I believe in what you can do so that you don't build up to having too much stress, to have to be overwhelmed, to be diagnosed. So we talk about strategies of prevention. You said that you had a car and that the tire blew. So with that, we would start with prevention. Number one prevention tactic would be to make sure you have a good spare, right? Number two would be maybe that you have a insurance company that has roadside assistance, right? That's
Okay.
another prevention. That way, when that tire blows, number one, you've got a spare, that you have something that is going to come. The first thing that you do is breathe. It's going to be the first thing that you do, right? Because you're not going to think of, oh, I got a full spare, and I've got roadside assistance. So really, I'm probably only going to be an hour late. I might be able to, and then start talking about that strategy of how you can problem solve. So the thing would be to problem solve, and that usually means you have to think. And to think, you have to breathe. So to start it all off, when you feel the tire pop or whatever, breathe, because, oh my God, now you need to come up with some resources. You're going to have to come and start thinking instead of reacting. So when you react is when you cuss, when you going off, and it's all emotion that is being pushed out of you. Gosh darn it, and then you're in it, right? Road rage, everything is coming at once. So you just breathe. And when you breathe, you're like, okay, oh my gosh, my tire, and I have this meeting. And then you breathe, and then it comes up. I got roadside assistance, right? I don't even have to get out in the rain and fix the tire. I'm gonna sit here and call. And once I call roadside assistance, my next call is gonna be to my office, right? So now you're problem solving. You're thinking of what your next step should be. Your boss, now your office knows, oh my gosh, she's at a flat. Are you okay? Are you alive? Right? And then you go through, right? The sympathy flows to you. Now you got an extra time, or you can do it Zoom, or, options are available at that point. But the more time you waste not breathing and problem solving, the more time you're wasting, number one, but you're getting yourself very worked up, very emotional, and it could ruin a day. When a flat tire does not have to ruin your day.
Absolutely. Now, see, I needed you about a week ago, okay? So I'm going to sit here and I'm going to take some notes, okay? Because I think people think that dealing with self and dealing with issues and dealing with problems are so far beyond our reach in terms of how we deal with it. Because if we had a conversation earlier, if we were adolescents and we encountered a situation And we didn't learn how to deal with that particular situation throughout our life, our teenagehood, our adolescence, our adulthood. And then we bring that same situation, if it's faced, if we face it again, we didn't know how to cope with it back then. So we carry this with us throughout our lives, through our adult lives, and nobody stops and say, wait a minute, hold on one second. Here are some basic, simple coping tips and skills that can help you when you encounter that same situation again. And I'm hearing that more and more if we have individuals or audience who have suffered or experienced some traumatic situations that carried them through adulthood. We still need to take a look at that and see how we can address it going forward, so we're not always stuck. I think about a clock, and if something happens, either catastrophic or traumatic, and if you look at a clock and you see it's 3:01, well then guess what? 30 years from now, you're gonna know at 3:01 this particular incident happened. So those kind of things I think is important also for us as adults to take a look at and say, maybe there's some things that we didn't get a chance to cope with. And now we're in a position where we're just like what we're doing now, having an open conversation about just some simple, basic coping skills in which I may not always need, to take it to another level.
Mm-hmm. And that's most things. Almost every person that is going to a therapist is going because they didn't problem solve, and their problems multiplied and they became too big for them, and then they needed assistance to come from under it. So if we start problem solving at the beginning, one of the things that I look at is a scale. Think of at the bottom of the scale, it's a scale that goes like this. And the middle is 5, at the bottom is 0, and at the top is 10. 0 is an unrealistic number for stress because we all have some stress in our life. So we're usually around a 2. So if I'll keep his finger here, this is the 5 bar. We're usually around a 2, right? You got some stressors, work, life. But when you start feeling yourself, and right now, feel yourself, Connie. What do you think, on that scale from 1 to 5 to 10, where do you feel you are right now? Where's your stress? How do you feel?
I'd say maybe about a 3 or 4, maybe about a 4.
Okay. I feel about a 4 too. So when we're feeling about a 4, that means that we need to start bringing in resources. We need to start looking at what our options are and what is going on in our life. There's a form that I provided, and I got some areas of your life on it, and you scale yourself. Like, do I still enjoy my job? 1 to 3. Am I exercising enough? Am I socializing? And you score yourself. And this gives you areas in your life that you might need work in, because sometimes we just don't know. We just don't feel right. It's not, and no one taught us how to do this. So how do something's just wrong. But if I kind of scale out different areas, my religion, spirituality, am I paying attention to my spirit, and am I, doing whatever that is in that person's spiritual life? Am I doing that? And start building where you feel low. No, I don't think I'm doing any physical workouts or anything for my physical self, my diet or things like that. So increase doing that, manage your diet, eat better, and you'll feel better in that area of your life. So when we're talking about most of the issues that people have is time management. We don't manage our time well. Usually the clock runs us. We don't run the clock. So what can we do to manage our time? And that would be number one. Most of us have so many things in our head. I've got a million things that I need to get done. It could be today, last week, upcoming, but it's still all in my head. So one tip that we can do is throw down on a piece of paper, just throw everything in your head down on the paper, and then look at what you wrote and prioritize it, because sometimes we're worried about the wrong things at the wrong time. And that brings on unwanted stress, especially if we're worried about something that's not important when something that is important is right there. So prioritize to make sure you're doing what you need to do when you need to do it. Reduces a lot of stress.
Now, Shor, you mentioned a form or the one that you were just talking about where it was a rating sheet. Is that something that the audience can go either to your website, or is it something that we can make available to the audience if they would like to get in contact with you to either discuss the form or receive the form? How would someone get that information from you?
They could go to email cn@communitynow.info, and that email will get to us, and then we can get the information out to them. You're always welcome to go to my site. www.communitynow.info is our website. There's some great information out there. We're always pushing out information. Also, our Facebook, Community Now, we do daily tips. This month, we're doing boundaries. So how to keep what is a boundary, how to keep boundaries, and, different things like that. So every day there's a different boundary tip out there.
Well, I want to say this has been the beginning of a series that we will definitely keep going, moving forward, especially for the African American community, because we look at how can B.A.R.D, the Black America Resource Directory, how can we be beneficial and impactful to our community? And we looked at some ways. We did a little informal survey, and the number one thing that people were saying was, I don't want people to think that I'm crazy if I go and I ask for help. Or I don't want people to know this because of X, Y, and Z. And if we provide and offer alternatives and other ways of coping or dealing with the issues or the situations, then we've done our part. We've done our part. And that's why we are so committed to making sure that we bring on experts like yourself in that field to say, okay, therapy may not work for you, but here's some coping tips. And Shor, you have been a remarkable person. We had the opportunity to feature you in our newsletter, and you also provide coping tips for the newsletter for the Stay Connected. So we are going to hopefully continue this series on with some other topics. Watch out, audience. I encourage you to visit www.communitynow and look and check out and see all the wonderful things that Shor Denny is doing with her organization, with the schools, and all of her involvement here in the Inland Empire. So Shor, we want to say thank you on behalf of the Black America Resource Directory. Any closing remarks that you would like to share with our audience?
I would just like to say that before COVID, we thought that mental health was something that somebody had to give to us. We were born with it, but if we lost it, we couldn't get it back. But since COVID, we found that we can maintain our own wellness. And there are many skills and tips that you can use to do that. Very simple things to help you stay well in your life. So the main thing that I will say from now on, with the holidays and the cold out there, I've already told you to breathe. So the next thing I'll tell you to do is just to make sure that you eat well, right? Stay well, eat well. What goes into your body comes out of you in different ways. So your health, your breathing, and remember that scale every day, all through the day. How do I feel? And if you feel like you're going up to a 5, then you need to start looking at how you can start solving some problems. Give us a call, text us, and maybe we can help you solve some of them.
And if you visit the Black America Resource Directory.com, click on our newsletter, because Shor has a wonderful hot tea recipe that you would love, and especially during this warm weather, this cold weather, we need it. On behalf of the Black America Resource Directory and the Black community, Shor, we want to say thank you. You're a valuable asset to our community, and thank you for taking the time to present Coping During the Holidays.
Thank you.
The Black America Resource Directory provides a wealth of information and resources to help the Black community connect and thrive. Our directory is packed with listings for Black-owned businesses, nonprofits, and community organizations